So here's the thing. I bought a house at 26, and recently I've been thinking whether that is the right decision or not. So I am going to be bringing you behind the scenes of owning a house at 26. What does it take and the math behind it? I also want to talk about some of the hidden costs that nobody talks about, and just the madness that buying a house is. Buying a house at 26 didn't happen because of a miracle or because my parents gave me the money. It was also not because I stopped buying coffee outside or I did not get any subscriptions. I think that that is the stupidest advice that I've heard on the internet, that if you stop buying coffee outside or if you stop buying lunch outside, you can magically afford a house. That is not true. Yes, financial discipline is important, but it's not gonna make that big of a dent. Let's talk about the reality of actually buying a house and how it happened for me. Very first thing that I obsessed over is how much money is coming in instead of how much money is going out. I think that a lot of people actually obsess over the wrong thing, and it isn't because it's their fault. It's because the media has told us that, oh, like, we should focus on and obsess over being very frugal. And yes, it is important. Yes, financial discipline is important, but it's not gonna make a big of a difference if you're earning 30,000 and trying to save for a deposit, especially in Dublin. So for me, the very first thing that I try to do is make sure that I am obsessing over increasing my salary and increasing the money that is coming into my bank account versus what's going out. So I have a tech sales role where I have a high salary, and that is how I was able to afford a house. That is the plain and simple truth. And since it is a sales role, if I hit my targets, I do actually get a bonus. And so my focus over the last couple of years has entirely been on how do I maximize it? How do I make sure that I'm using this incentive to my advantage? Please obsess over how much money is coming in. Yes, you should be conscious of what is going out. You shouldn't just be spending everything you get, but obsessing over the right things is important. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about the fact that my job alone didn't just allow me to buy a house. I actually took advantage of the system. So I took advantage of two government schemes that exist in Ireland for new home buyers who are trying to buy a new build house. I took advantage of something called the Help to Buy scheme. The Help to Buy scheme essentially is a tax rebate of up to 10% of the purchase value. That is the max you can take out is 30,000, and the government actually gives it to you once you get your mortgage and your drawdown done. Now, I want to be clear. It seems like free money. Yes, there are no strings attached, but it isn't really free money. This is just the tax that I had paid over the couple of years that I have been here, and it has accumulated in revenue. And if you want today, you can go into revenue.ie and you will be able to see essentially how much money is built up there, and you can use that against your deposit or anything else you want to as well. Second thing that I took advantage of as well is the first home scheme. Now, the first home scheme is a little bit different. It is actually a equity that the government is getting in your own home. So it essentially is trying to help you bridge the gap between the mortgage approval that you've gotten from your bank and the purchase value of the house. Anything that's the difference between that, this scheme will help you fund that. Now, let's be clear again, this is not free money. In fact, it isn't even a loan. What it is an equity in your house. And but people don't understand sometimes what equity actually means. It basically means that if the government is paying you or giving you 30,000 today to be able to afford a new build home, and if that 30,000 is 10% of the purchase value of the house, in 10 years time, if 10% of your house actually comes out to 50,000 instead of 30,000, you're going to be paying back the government 50,000, not 30,000. So that is how this scheme works. There are eligibility requirements for both of these schemes, and the main ones are you have to be a first-time buyer, and number two, you're going to be buying a new build instead of a second-hand home. I also want to talk about the main difference between a second-hand home and a new build is that second-hand home is you are actually buying from another person who already owned that house before you. New build is something that's completely new, that's been built, and you are the first person to own it. I personally did not go for a second-hand home. Number one, because I would not have been able to take advantage of these government schemes, and I really needed them to be able to afford the place. But then number two as well, I just think that when I was going to secondhand homes, I kept getting outbid by people who had a higher purchasing power than me, and obviously had a lot more money than I did. And so I was never able to even bid close to what they were asking for. So yeah, I didn't go for that. Now let's actually talk about the hidden costs of owning a house. These I personally think are sucker punches in the house buying process. I think that nobody generally is prepared for these things until you actually research into those or you're going through the process yourself. So I want to be fully clear that buying a house isn't just the deposit that you're saving for a lot more. For example, if you are buying a new built house, even if you're buying a second-hand home, you are likely going to be doing some furnishings, right? For a new built house, you're going to be doing everything from scratch. When I say everything, I mean everything. Even the floors that you see behind me, they weren't there. I had to put them in. Everything in this house was nothing there. I had to put everything in. So there is that furnishing cost that you're paying for when you actually buy a house as well. So deposit is not the only thing you're saving for. Now let's talk about some of the other costs as well. Apart from the deposit and the furnishings, I also had to pay for stamp duty, which is about 1% of the house value. I also had to pay my solicitor. That was about 2 to 3K. Solicitors are extremely important and necessary in the process. You cannot just bypass that, so you have to get a solicitor. And then there was other costs as well, right? Getting an insurance, getting life insurance for your mortgage. So there's other hidden costs that nobody talks about, and I can make a separate video on all of these hidden costs and how I dealt with them, how I prepared for them, so you know exactly what you're going into when you're going through the process. But I also think that there are two other things that are factors in purchasing a house, at least for a 26-year-old. The first is obviously the lock-in, the lifestyle lock-in, as we will call it. I think that my peers will likely have an easier time when moving to a different country or moving to a different place for a new job because they don't have a house that's tying them down. So yes, there is that piece of the lifestyle lock-in which does come into play, especially if you're a young person trying to buy a house and trying to get on a property ladder. Especially if you're not sure whether you are in the right city or not, whether you would want to be in this city for long term. So the lifestyle lock-in is definitely there. I also think that recently I've been having conversations with my friends who also own a house, and they don't really feel like they're locked in here at all. They can just leave whenever they want and put the house to a rental agency. So I feel the same way. I don't feel like I'm tied down here. If I want tomorrow, I can go anywhere I want and just put the house to a rental agency. But again, this is just my own perspective. Different people will have different perspectives as well. The final thing about owning a house and the hidden costs with it is the maintenance piece. If you are renting and if the boiler breaks, it isn't your responsibility to fix it. You can just call the landlord, they'll come and they'll fix it for you. The amount that's coming out is out of their pocket, not yours. But if you're buying a house, it's your responsibility. If the boiler breaks, it's my responsibility. And so yes, there's that maintenance piece as well. Now let's actually talk about the flip side of it, the financial flip side of it. So for example, if you are renting a house at the moment, or if you're renting an apartment, depending on the location that you are in, you're likely going to be paying upwards of 1,800. Dublin rent prices are insane. I was renting an apartment near town, and I was paying about 1,350 a month. Other friends of mine were paying even more. And so if I compare that with my mortgage right now, which comes to round about the same amount of rent that I was paying, you're paying exactly the same amount, if not less, for your own mortgage. So the math is there, the math makes sense. And then I think there's the peace of mind as well. So when I first came to Dublin and I was living in a house, I got an eviction notice and I was told to move. Now that I'm in my own house, that fear of getting an eviction notice is no longer there, and it's your own space. You can do whatever you want with it. I can decorate it however I want without fear of what my landlord would say or what the agency would say. And so I feel like I have a lot more free reign to live and make the space my own. And then the final piece that I also think is super important is that every time you pay rent, every single month you pay rent, that rent is a cost. But whenever you pay a mortgage every month, that is actually building equity for you long term. So every single time I pay mortgage right now, which is literally the same amount, if not less, than what I was paying for my rent, I am not spending. This is not a cost. This is actually helping me build equity over time. So there is a difference between renting versus having a mortgage, and the main difference is, for renting it's a cost, but a mortgage is equity in your house. You're buying equity back from the bank whenever you pay mortgage every single month. As someone who is financially very conscious about how assets actually appreciate in value and what is the cost, liability, all of these different things, I just think that I'm a lot more comfortable paying something every single month that actually helps me build equity over time versus just keep paying costs and rent. Now, the final verdict on whether or not I regret buying a house. I absolutely do not regret buying a house. I do think that, yes, it is a lot of work. It is a lot of hard work that goes into it, from saving and also making sure that you're, investing in yourself, increasing your salary, focusing on budgeting and all these different things. Yes, it is a lot of hard work. I'm not lying. There was a lot of work involved. Some days in the process, I also felt like crying because it was just a lot to take in. But once you go through the whole process, it actually makes you feel like you've earned every single day of living here. And I just feel a lot more peace and just feel like this is my own space. I can make it however I want. I can live however I want. It just makes me feel a lot more peaceful knowing that my money is going somewhere that's helping me build equity over time. So look, like, if you're a 26-year-old or 20-something-year-old watching this and thinking whether or not this is the right decision for you, I personally think it is a personal choice. It is something that it's a big decision, and it has to come from a place of full security and full financial independence. And I think that if you are unsure, think about it more, read about it more, research more on it. This is just my own perspective on how I did things. So it also depends on what your goal is in life. My goal is being financially free by the time I'm 40. And so all of these different things came into play when I was trying to buy a house and the decision of buying a house. So my advice really is, yes, it is for me the best decision that I made. And if you are in the same boat and if your goals are exactly the same, then I would say that yes, go ahead, look into buying a house. It isn't impossible. I just also want to say that if you are unsure about it in whatever way, I would recommend researching. This video is not financial advice. It's not meant to be financial advice. It's just my own perspective on how I bought a house, the behind the scenes of it, what I had to go through, and everything in the process. Yeah, I think that concludes it. Now, I just want to say thank you so much if you've watched the whole video and if you come to the end of it. Thank you. I will be uploading more videos every single week, talking about being financially free, financially independent, and also wanting to retire early. So you can follow, you can like, you can subscribe if you want. But yeah, I'll be here every single week.